guys, I'm Anita and I'm back with another video. Today I wanted to share with you part 3 of all of my completed series. I've done 2 more videos of this, so I'm talking about the book series that I've completed since last time. So if you want to see all of my completed series, if you're new to my channel or whatever, or haven't seen the previous 2, I will reluctantly link the first 2 down below. The first one is very early on in my channel, that's why I say reluctantly, but yeah, I do have obviously 2 more videos talking about book series that I finished in all of my time since I've been alive, so yeah. And this is the 3rd one, and this one covers the series that I've completed since the end of 2019. So it's actually 4 whole years worth of reading, and I've managed to finish 25 series since then. It's definitely not enough considering how many book series I'm starting. So the math doesn't add up in that way. But I like, this is a pat on my shoulder letting me know that I do actually end up finishing series sometimes. But my real issue with series is that a lot of the series that I pick up are super long, and a lot of them keep coming new additions to the series all the time. They don't really seem to have a finish date in sight. And so obviously when book series becomes 20 plus books, it takes a while to get there, and I've also a lot of book series that I'm caught up to, but obviously they're not complete yet, but they're not part of this video today. So that is also a real struggle for me when it comes to series, finishing different series that I've started. But 25 series is still a good amount of series, so let's get started, because it could end up being a really long video otherwise. So the first series that I finished was also a really big accomplishment, because there was the Fitz and the Fool trilogy, and the Fitz and the Fool trilogy is the 5th series set in the realm of the Elderlings, which is series of 16 books in general if you read all of them. So it's a really big accomplishment for me reading them, and all of the 3 books in this series are also really long. But I loved all of these series, all of these books in the series. I actually really enjoyed them. I enjoyed how they came together. Robin Hobb is the queen of fantasy. She's the queen of creating characters that you absolutely fall in love with, and it was really hard reading them, because also Fitz, who we follow since the beginning of the Elderling universe with the Assassin's Apprentice, he was somewhere in his 50s, 60s by the end of this series, and you didn't know what would happen, because a lot of hardship have been pushed against Fitz in the previous books, so you didn't know if he was going to end up dying in the last book. And it was so hard reading that in that way, because you didn't know what you had intended to do. But otherwise, really enjoyed it. It was the first time where we saw perspectives from more than Fitz's perspective when we followed Fitz, which was also interesting, but it made a whole lot of sense, all things considered. So yeah, I loved all of them. I think I gave all 3 books 5 stars, so it's an overall 5-star series for me. And I can't wait to revisit all of Robin Hobb's books at some point. I just haven't found the time where I can actually emotionally also be ready to read them again, because I know they are packing a lot, and I have been in a weird mood when it comes to that type of fantasy and just books in general. I like reading books where I know there's not too much hardship. I don't like crying at the moment with books, and that's why I've been reading so many romances, because you know a lot of the time romances has a happy ending. So, but yeah, love this one to bits. I won't talk more about this because it could become really long, this video. So the next one I finished was The Song of the Lioness by Tamora Pierce. This is the first series in a longer arching universe called the Turtle Universe, I believe. I wanted to start this body reading project, and it started out pretty okay, and then it fizzled out towards the end of this. It didn't really work out for majority of those who participated, so a lot of, yeah, I don't know. So I never continued with the project really, and I ended up giving all these books, I think, 3.5 to 4 stars. So it's on a 3.5 to 4 stars overall series for me. And I've heard that the next one, The Immortals, is actually a better series overall, and some of the people really like that one. But I've only read the first one, and I hardly remember anything that happened in that one. So I don't know. I probably will try and revisit her later, because Tamora Pierce is such an iconic author when it comes to the YA fantasy genre. I think she published, it's probably also more middle grade, some of her books, but she published fantasy books before there was a definite YA middle grade sort of distinguished between, what is it called? Sort of, before that we had YA and middle grade being a different type of age groups, like, so it was all just part of a kids book section, whatever. Anyway, that was that one. Next up, I also finished the Wallflower series by Lisa Kleypas. This is a historical romance series following these girls who are never really picked, and when they're going to the different balls, they are turning the spinster age for their time and having a hard time, but they decide to come together to help each other finding a suitable husband for each other. And it is a lot of fun reading these books. I think Lisa Kleypas as an author has a better higher rating for me than Julia Quinn, even though I've read way more Julia Quinn books. She has an ability to create stronger characters, in my opinion, and stronger romances. So I definitely need to start out with more of the books, because there are actually a lot of these series that she's written that are sort of connecting to the Wallflower series. So the next one I have to read is the Hathaways, I think, and I'm really looking forward to trying that out in the future. The next thing that I finished is one of my absolute favorite Danish fantasy writers of all time, and that is Den Store Djævlekrig, or The Great Devil War by Kenneth Bøgh Andersen. All of these books has been translated into English, so if you want to, you can actually read them, but at the moment I think they are only available in audio form from Audible. I know that they are available there, but I know that they haven't been able to find them in ebook form, for instance, on Amazon. But sometimes I think you can find a combination of the books, and you can buy physical copies somewhere. So I absolutely love this series. The first book was a 4 stars for me, but from then on it was more or less 5 stars all the way. Kenneth has such a unique writing style. He has a unique way of building up the plot, and he is excellent at creating twists and turns that you don't see coming, and then pulls another twist on top of that. So it's really good, and it's sort of dark fantasy, but with a good amount of underlying humor from that I've only seen from Kenneth Bøgh Andersen doing it that way. It's very Danish, I think, in that way, but I really enjoyed them. They talk obviously a lot about religion and religious beliefs and stuff, but without being tacky and without attacking people who are religious and stuff. So I think he handles that really, really well. Overall, I think I would call this a 5-star series, even though the first one was only a 4 stars, and I don't remember if I gave the 5th one 4 stars, 4.5 or something like that. But my overall enjoyment of this, it's a 5-star series for me. So I highly recommend this. Please go and check it out if you are at all interested in reading some translated books. They are amazing. The next series that I finished is a duology, and that is the Sala and Gabby series. The first one being the Sala and Gabby Breaks the Universe, and the second one being the Sala and Gabby Fix the Universe. And this took me so much with surprise. Sala and Gabby Breaks the Universe was like, I think, my 3rd favorite book of that year, and that's a middle grade, and that says a lot. I think it just packs so much. It has a found family, it has great real family elements in this one, great friendships, interesting magic systems that follow sort of dimensional stuff, and very interesting cultural aspects, because we're following a Mexican protagonist. So Mexican-American? What's it called? Anyway, loved this one, gave it 5 stars. I think I gave the second one 4 stars. It was definitely not as good as the first one, but still an overall really good duology that I would highly recommend to anyone who's interested in reading middle grade fantasy books. They are great. I think a lot of the books in the Rick Riordan Presents line are really interesting and has a lot to offer, but this one is my favorite that I've read from so far. So the next thing that I finished was a longer urban fantasy series called The Hollows by Kim Harrison. Actually, I think she's published more books. I don't know if it's a direct continuation, but it was sort of seen as a complete series for so long, and then right after I finished it, she decided to publish another book. And I really dislike when authors decide after they finished it, that they want to bump up a couple of new books, because the ending was so well written that I don't think it deserved having a sort of revive. But I think it's more or less like a spin-off series, if you will. So I can still see this as a 13th book complete series, and we're following a witch. She is considered a white witch in this world because her magic sort of is relying on earth magic. But it turns out that she has sort of abilities that she can use ley line magic, which is something that is only dark witches can do. So there's a lot of discussions about that, and then there are obviously vampires and pixies and all of these different things. We have actually our main character, a vampire and a pixie, that starts up this little investigation firm, and then we have Trenton Callamack, who sort of rules the city, and it's set in Ohio, I believe, Cincinnati, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I read it, but I absolutely love them. They are so action-packed, all of them. They are about 500 pages each. They're relatively long for urban fantasy series, but they pack so much. So I think if you're an urban fantasy fan, you like that genre, definitely check it out. I don't think it will disappoint you. They have a lot of twists and turns, and in the beginning they have a little bit of a romance happening that I'm not happy with, but at least that doesn't continue too long. And then we have some other romance things happen, but compared to other urban fantasy that I've read, it has very little focus on the romance and more focus on plot development and the world and things that happens in the series. So overall, just really love this series so much. And I don't know where it falls in terms of ratings, because I've definitely both had 5-star reads, and I've had 4-star reads, and I've had 3-star reads in this. But I think an overall 4 to 4.5 star read for this series as a whole. I haven't really done a math because it's 13 books, so yeah. And right after this, I also finished Sookie Stackhouse. This is also a 13 book long series, so they're equally long, but the books in this series are a lot shorter. And it's obviously Sookie Stackhouse, the Southern Vampire, is what inspired the TV series True Blood. So if you've watched that, maybe you're interested in reading it, but I don't think that they're necessarily the same. I think a lot of people have a high love for Eric and Sookie. I never really had any care about the romantic relations in this one. What I really enjoyed was all of the paranormal stuff happening, the investigations, the action-packed things, and for me it was way better the first 5 to 6 books than the last 5 to 6 to 7, 8 books. From then on, I think that it lowered the quality a little bit by bit, but I still think of this series with fondness because I had a lot of fun reading them. But I think an overall 3 to 3.5 stars for this series as a whole. But yeah, it's still a lot of fun, and they're very short, so maybe it would be something that you would like. The next thing that I finished was the Bridgerton series. I finished everything before I've watched any of the Bridgerton seasons. I don't remember if they had actually published the first season of Bridgerton when I finished. I don't think they had, but I think they were in the works of starting it. I like the TV show, the Bridgerton TV show. I think I definitely prefer the second season over the book, but I know that's an unpopular opinion, but that's because I didn't really like Anthony when I read the book, and I like him on the show, so I don't know. Anyway, I really enjoyed my time reading the Bridgerton's books. The first one I gave 5 stars, but thinking back on it, it's probably more like a 4 stars, because there definitely some questionable things happening, but I think it was the first historical romance book that I read, so I didn't really know what to expect, and I had a lot of fun with it, and I liked the sort of quirky, fun little starter things with the author. Obviously, if you know anything about the Bridgerton, you know what I mean. And I like that. And then I gave the second book, I gave 4 stars. The third book I gave, which was Benedict's book. I have to think about that because the third season is Colin's book. But in the book series, it's Benedict's books, and I dislike that one. I think I gave 3.5 stars because there were definitely elements I liked, but there were definitely also things I didn't like about that book. And then I gave the Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, which is Colin's book, I think 4 stars. And then after that it was which comes after Romancing Mr. Bridgerton? Is that Eloise's books? There are 2 books there that are like 3.5 stars for me, Francesca's and Eloise's. And then Hyacinth and Georgie, I think I gave them both 4 stars. So I think we're landing on about a 4-star series for me in total. I'm not sure. There are 8 books. I like them, so yeah. Next thing I finished was the Parasol Protectorate series by Gail Carriger. This is an urban fantasy series set in the Victorian times, I think, if I remember correctly. We're following Alexis Terabody, and she is, yeah, it's just so much fun. It has an interesting sort of magic system. Their blood is, vampires can't eat them, basically, because it's sort of poisonous to them. So they have an interesting part in the universe, and yeah, it's a whole lot of fun, again, if you enjoy urban fantasy and also like the historical setting. They have so much humor, and they have so many interesting characters, and I definitely need to continue on with Gail Carriger's books, because I think she has an interesting writing style that I haven't really experienced with other authors. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's 4 or 5 books long. Definitely enjoyed it and gave them all, I think, 4 stars. So they are 4-star series for me, I think, overall, and definitely highly recommend them. Next up, we have another Danish fantasy series where I own. They're so beautiful, the covers. The first one is Rosa and Viola, Rosa of Viola, which is Roses and Violets. This is the first book in the Rosenholm trilogy. It's set on a Danish posh boarding school, where I believe the boarding school they're going to, it's only for girls, and we're following the perspective between 4 different girls as they're trying to solve a mystery, and sort of a ghosty mystery. And there's a lot of Norse mythology elements added to it that is done really, really well, and sort of some historical aspects to it that is mentioned, that also makes it a really interesting read. And the books become longer and longer, and they become more and more impactful. I think I gave the first one 4 stars, and I think I gave the second one 4.5 stars, if I'm not mistaken, which is called Forget Me Not. And the third one got a 5 stars because it just packs so much, and it's also like way larger than the other books. And so it definitely one that became better and better with each book. And look how pretty they are. I mean, they're so pretty on my shelf, and I admire them constantly. And this one has actually started, at least the first book has been translated into English, so you can read that if you want to. I don't know when or if they're translating the second and third book, but they have, it's Actis Books that is publishing the books. So if, yeah, you probably have to look into that. I think maybe they're translating to German a little further. I'm not actually certain about that. Next one is a series that's also like a big accomplishment, but it's one that I miss reading from constantly, and that is obviously my favorite. I don't know who is my favorite, if it's Terry Pratchett or if it's Robin Hobb, but the Discworld books, I love them all, more or less. Like, I have a fondness for all the books, even though they're not all 5-star reads for me. Terry Pratchett is, yeah, he's just amazing, and I miss reading his books, so I definitely need to reread that. I have reread the first 2 Death books since, and definitely enjoyed them. My favorite, all-time favorite book, Discworld book, is Reaper Man by Terry Pratchett. I reread it on a trip to Crete, and it was so much fun. I love this one so much. It has, yeah, it just explores an interesting theory about Death. If Death was fired from his job as Death, and what's happening, who could take that job instead of him, and what will happen with that. And while they are trying to find someone decent enough to actually do this job, what is happening to the world around them. And then we see what will Death do if he is actually fired. What will he spend his time doing? And he takes a job as a farmer, helping on the farm, because he's really good with a scythe, obviously. So yeah, it's humorous and it's interesting. I loved it. My favorite witches book, I think Cabejuglim or Masquerade, I don't know which one is my favorite, but this is definitely one of them. This is wonderful and a play on the vampire genre in general. I think Masquerade is actually my favorite. Masquerade is the Phantom of the Opera one, but I still also really love this one. Favorite City Watch book is Thud. I love this one. it is everything. That one and Night Watch are so good, and Guards, the first one in that series, sets up the whole series really well. Loved it. And then we have Making Money which is a Maurice Malibik book, also one that's considered some people's their favorite. So yeah, definitely highly recommend Terry Pratchett. I have a ranking video on my YouTube. It's one of the most watched at the moment. So yeah, if you want to watch it, you haven't watched it, definitely go and check that out. You can start wherever you want with Terry Pratchett's books, more or less, but I think that for the best enjoyment, you should start either with the beginning, like working your way through it in the chronological Discworld order, which you can find on Goodreads, and it's interesting way of reading it because you dip in and out of the different series as you go along, and you don't stay with the same characters constantly. But on the other hand, you can also just take one of the smaller series at a time, and that way feel accomplished when you finish one of the sub-series. I don't know. Shepherd's Crown is also great. It has a character death in there that is so hard to read, but means it sort of makes sense, but it's also sort of a way of Terry Pratchett writing the fact that he was accepting the fact that he was dying. It's just he didn't finish the book completely. So yeah, anyway, love Terry Pratchett so much, and I envy people who hasn't started or who hasn't finished it yet because I felt such a loss after finishing this one. Anyway, we have so many more series to talk about, so let's move on. The next series I finished was Miles High series. We are on a different ball game here completely. This is a very yeah, it's a romance series that follows the 4 Miles brothers. Yeah, and it's definitely not for everyone. I need to stress that it's very much dividing people, and it's not the best writing. It's not the best characters but the process of reading it was so much fun for me, and it was so addictive. I got through the whole series in I think a week, and they're all like 500 pages or something like that, and I've reread the first three times now, and I noticed last time I'm not gonna read them again because every time I read them now I see the flaws more and more, and so no, it's not gonna happen. I will just think of them as a fondness, and I think the first one was a 4.5 star for me. There's 2 books in the middle were 5-star reads, and then the last one was, I gave it 4 stars, but I think of it more of a 3.5 star now. And I think an overall, I don't know, 4.5 star series for me. But proceed with caution is what I'll say. I don't know what's happening with the sun today. It's shining, but it's shining onto my floor right now, and it shines on me in a weird way. So apologies. Anyway, next up, I also finished the Heirs of Hansel series by Jessie Lee. This is the book that I started for my Harlequin, the beginning of my Harlequin project, and I will leave a link to that up above if you're interested. This follows Hansel family members, and it's a Korean Americans, and it's such an interesting, they're so good at, she's really good at creating these good romance stories. The first one was my favorite. I gave that 4.5 stars. Then I gave the second one 3.5 stars, and I gave the last one 4 stars, which is an overall 4-star rating for me. I definitely enjoyed it. In a completely different ball game as well, the Lord of the Rings series by J.R.R. Tolkien. First starting with the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, and finally the Return of the King. They are so beautiful. It's like, I understand why it's such a well-loved series. The first one was a 5-star book for me. I think if I reread them now again, I would probably also, I don't know. I gave the second one, I think I gave it 4 to 4.5 stars, and I think I gave the last one 4.5 to 5 stars. So I loved them all, but not equally. But they were a lot of fun, and I have such a huge respect for the series as a whole, and The Hobbit is one of my favorite fantasy books as well. So definitely need to read more J.R.R. Tolkien. I don't know if the Silmarillion and the other books in the Tolkien universe is as good. The next thing that I finished was the Night Rebel series by Janine Frost. This is a series set in the Night Huntress universe. There are a bunch of series that I think I recommend you read before you get to this, because they are best if you watch them in a sort of if you read them in the chronological Night Huntress universe order, that's where you get the most valuable things out of it. And this series follows Ian McTavish, who is one of the side characters from the original Night Huntress series, and I definitely prefer this over the Dracula one, the series before this. I think I gave the first one 4.5. I gave the first 2 books I think 4.5 stars, and the last one I gave 4 stars. So yeah, an overall 4 to 4.5 star trilogy series for me. And I think there's been another book to the Night Huntress universe that I've just seen, and I thought it was complete. So there's an 8th book now, and I have to go and revisit that series sometime in the future. Then the next thing that I finished was Dating by Numbers series by Megan Quinn. This is a 3-book long series. It follows it starts out by following this girl who goes on 3 different dates when she's using this specific dating app. And yeah, it follows basically, first of all, we follow the romance that ends up happening in the first one, and in the later books we follow the other people she was on a romantic journey with, but that didn't last, and their romances, if you will. And the last one was definitely my least favorite of the books, but I think of it as an overall 4 out of 5 star read for me. Next up, I finished up the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer, the first one being Cinder and the second one being Scarlet. Then we have Cress, and we have by the end here Winter, and these books also get longer and longer as time progresses, and they're so easy to read, they're easy to consume, and they're interesting in that they take sort of fairy tale characters and mix them up with dystopian sci-fi universe. The Earth is dying and they're at war with Queen Levana. So in the first one, Cinder is a half cyborg. Scarlet is this universe version of Little Red Riding, yeah, Little Red, I don't know. And Rapunzel, and finally Snow White. And this one was interesting. They're a lot of fun, and I think of them as a 4-star read overall. So yeah, for YA, I think they do a lot of good stuff, and I definitely would be interested in reading them at some point. So in that way, it's a decent series. The next thing that I finished was the Seaside Cafe Mystery. I feel like I am in a sort of this video is giving a weird vibe. The Seaside Cafe Mystery by Brie Baker. This is a 7-book long series that I absolutely adored. It is Julianne Lindsay, who writes also a lot of intrigue, romantic suspense books. She writes under a pen name Brie Baker. I think, or maybe actually Brie Baker is a real name and the Julianne Lindsay is a pen name. I'm not sure about the whole thing about that, but love this series so much. She writes cozy mysteries just the way I want them. It's the best kind of cozies. They have a good amount of amateur sleuthing going on. They have like excellent characters. The setting is impeccable, and they also have a little bit of a romantic twist to them, which is something that I find good, likable when they do it well. So yeah, definitely one of my all-time favorite cozy mystery series, or mystery series in general. I think I gave them more or less all of them 4 stars. So I think of it as a 4-star series for me. The next thing that I finished was the STEMinist novellas by Ellie Hazelwood. I couldn't remember her name right now. Obviously these are novellas. They are following these women working in STEM and sort of that. There are 3 novellas. And the first one was definitely my favorite. I think I gave that 4 stars, but the other 2 were 3-star reads for me. So I think of it around a 3 to 3.5 star overall series for me. I think she works better in full novel form, because I don't think she's disappointed me in any of her full novels yet. So the next thing that I finished was the Sisters of the Roaring Twenties series. I don't have the first book in the series yet. I have just ordered it. So it's coming in the mail, but the second one is called, the first one is called The Flapper's Fake Fiancé. The second one is called The Flapper's Baby Scandal, and the third one is called The Flapper's Scandalous Elopement. And all of these books are great. They are the best type of historical romance. They're set in the 1920s, and they have a good vibe to them, following the daughters of this rich man who is trying to marry them off. Yeah, absolutely adored that. All of them. I gave the first one 4.5 to 5 stars, gave the second one 4 stars, gave the third one 4.5 to 5 stars. So overall, and 4.5 star read series trilogy from me, I think. And definitely highly recommend it if you're interested in historical romances that are set in a different time than Regency, which is the majority of historical romances when they're set. Another series that I finished was the Smythe-Smith Quartet by Julia Quinn. This is a series where I feel like the first book was good, and then it sort of went a little bit downhill from there. I think I gave the first one 4 stars and the other 3.5 to 3 stars. So overall, I think of this series as a 3.5 stars. But it is a sort of set in the same Bridgerton universe. It follows a different family, but it's set in the same world as the Bridgerton series. You often hear about the Smythe-Smith house when in the Bridgerton books, as well as the Bevelstoke house, which is the next series that I will pick up from Julia Quinn. But I think I'm gonna go and explore a little bit more about from Lisa Kleypas before I dive into more Julia Quinn, because I think that Lisa Kleypas writes better books, because I think her books were like 4 to 5 star books, all of them. So yeah, I'm blinded. I hate it. Another series that I finished was a duology, and it's called The Allure by R.S. Gray. This is contemporary romances set. We're following the first one. We're following a girl who's moved to New York, I believe, from a small town, and she wants to be a sort of fashion blogger, but she doesn't really have any money, so she is trying to do the cheap clothes and showing people how you can be fashionable without having a lot of money, but without saying that she's actually in depth in a way, or struggling money-wise. But then we're also following a man who is working for this fashion agency, and she takes up a job with him, trying to get more money in, working as an assistant. Like his sister is like the owner of the fashion brand, or whatever, the creator of the fashion brand. And yeah, so it's their romance. It's really good. And then we have another one. We're following her friend. She moves to New York to be with her best friend who moved to the city, and then his best friend has a bar, and she is a bartender, and she comes and sort of makes it. Yeah, it's honestly just really good romances, both of them. I love them. I gave them both 4.5 stars, so an overall 4.5 star series for me, and definitely recommend them. If you've read any R.S. Gray and liked it, you would probably like this one as well. And yeah, it's just really good contemporary, in my opinion. It's not the angsty stuff, so if that's what you read, then I don't think you'll find it here. Another series that I completed was a duology, and that was the Fool Me Once series by Ashley Winstead. Wait, why can't I remember her name right now? Anyway, this is her contemporary romance, and she writes a lot of thrillers. I've really enjoyed her thrillers so far, but these were 2 4-star reads for me, but I preferred the second one over the first one. But they are political and romances, so set in the political world in the US, and it's interesting, but I liked the second one more than the first one. So, but I like both, gave them both 4 stars, so a 4-star series for me. And last and finally, I'm not actually entirely sure if this is complete, but I can't see there's a new book that's being talked about, and that is the Chronicles of St. Mary series by Jodie Taylor. This is a sci-fi series set where there are historians traveling back in time, sort of documenting what happened. But what happens with this series is that some people has tried to go back and try to change things in order to change for their benefits. So they are actually now traveling back in time to stop them and make sure that things happen the way they should, so that it doesn't mess up with the future of everything. Which I love, that kind of sci-fi, and they are packed with humor and Britishness, and it's really, really good. I think if you read Connie Willis time travel books, I think you'll like them. And also, if you like this, I think you'll like Connie Willis. So it's a sort of an interesting, yeah, vibe they give. and I love them all. There are 15 books in the series, and I think this one is the last one, but I'm not certain, so we'll see. I actually have finished more book series in 2024, but I think I'm gonna save them for the next one. I think it's gonna be way too long if I continue too many with more series. Yeah, but anyway, have you read any of the series that I've talked about today, and which ones did you like? And do you agree with my thoughts about the different series if you've read them? And are there any of the series that I've talked about today that you're interested in? Definitely let me know in the comments down below. What series have you finished recently? I would also like to know that in the comments down below. And I'm sorry about the lighting in here. I am blinded constantly and it's annoying me so much right now. Anyway, this is everything I had for you today. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video very, very soon. Bye!